Yeah, so I have Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works, and I've been processing since 2007 when I was pregnant with my daughter. I opened the mill, and have an animal science background. So most of my stuff was in the ag part of it, and the fiber was always like the secondary thing, the fun stuff. And then, like Tammy said, I moved up here with my girls and opened the mill, and it was right after, like we had just reopened everything right after that. And I was managing, this is a big dairy. We had about 2,000 calves a day, 2,000 calves a year. So it was a big, we milked about 1,500 cows 3 times a day. So it was a big dairy, and I don't really remember all of it. John should have been part of it too, because he was there. He was on the other side of things. But yeah, so I was taking care of the cows, and I don't even know, so the last thing, I don't remember any of it, but we're assuming what happened was the mom and the baby were together. It was in a huge room, full of straw, where they calve. It's in a big open space, and the cow had calved, and we're assuming I treated, we give everybody medicine, make sure they're all happy, healthy, nobody gets sick. So I did that. And then after that, I must have turned around to take care of the calf, and she just pretty much got me from behind and nailed me, and just pretty much had a field day with me and tore me apart one way or the other. She ended up all of the damage was pretty much, she broke, the pieces of on your spine, the things that stick out. So she got those. She broke ribs. I think I had 7 broken ribs. She poked a hole in my esophagus. So I had a hole in my esophagus. When she broke the ribs what poked the hole in the esophagus. And then worst of all was she broke my sternum and tore my aorta open. So 7/8 of my aorta was torn up. So it was literally hang on, and so I have a graft in 3 places. So it's literally just glued together. So the result overall was just, they ended up having to graft everything together. I had a stroke because of the blood loss. So out of all of it though, the only thing that was really affected was my left hand, which I was left-handed. So that was what ended up causing the biggest problem, was that being left-handed. So I had to relearn how to do everything. So out of all of it, I think that was the most annoying part of all of it, was just because I had to relearn how to do everything right-handed. But overall, I think, I don't know, I didn't really think of any of it, just other than just, okay, I just have to do it, I'm not going to sit there and complain about it or cry about it, or, you just got to figure out, there's plenty of other people out there that only have one hand, one arm, that can still do things. So it was more of just let's figure out how to do this. I remember being in the hospital, and they were trying to evaluate me and trying to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working, that kind of thing. And I remember him holding my hand up, and I was like, well, I don't need that anymore. You can just cut it off and put it in the closet. That's what I told them. I was like, so then I was like, they're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's what they said. They're like, you're not going to do that. So that's when I named my hand Roberta when I was under a lot of drugs. So now every time I try and do anything, I'm always like, okay, come on, Roberta, let's do this. So every time people are like, who's Roberta? I was like, oh, even my kids say the same thing now. My girls they were 8 and 10 when it happened. And so now they are 19 and 17 and 19. So yeah, but it took a good, I don't know, it was probably the first year, so I got out of, that happened in July, and then I got out of, I think I got home, it was Labor Day weekend. I was home from the hospital, I was in rehab for a week. That's the only, that I would not stay there. They wanted me to stay longer. I was like, I'm gonna learn better, not with you telling me how to do things. I'm gonna just be able to figure it out. There's no way sitting there in a hospital bed is not going to help me. So they kept me there for a week, and then they finally let me go. I said, I'm going to learn more, like figuring out how to do things when I have to do them. You know, when you're forced to do them, then you just trying to have everything perfectly set up to figure it out. I was like, it's not going to be worth it. And by then I was like off of all the medicine, and I just wanted to see my kids. So so I stayed for like rehab for a week, and then I got home and just started slowly. I kept complaining the whole time that my back was sore, and they're like, well, it should be sore with everything that happened, but it kept getting worse and worse. So I was still trying to heal. They kept telling me that, but it ended up being, my heart doctor found out was that when I had gone through she was afraid it was more because I was on an IV. I had a stomach tube and everything because they were trying to heal the esophagus. And so after that I don't remember, I finally that healed, and I never realized, but your esophagus is way more dangerous than even your heart. Like they said that if the hole in the esophagus hadn't healed, I would have been on a feeding tube the rest of my life. And I think that probably would have been the hardest part of all of it. And so thankfully that healed, and then I was off, but my back was still bothering me. And then finally the heart doctor, she's like, because it was like major, like I was on all sorts of drugs, and it was still like the back spasms were crazy. So they finally went to get I think it was a CAT scan or whatever. So she had me go right into Burlington. She said, okay, something's just either your esophagus is leaking or something's going on. And I ended up having osteomyelitis in my spine. So we had to go on some I spent another week there. They had to do all sorts of testing to figure out what antibiotics, to do. And it ended up, thankfully, they found the right antibiotics and were able to kill the bacteria. And it was because of when the esophagus, my rib was broken, they poked the hole in the esophagus, and then the bacteria from the esophagus, that's what caused the infection in the spine. It like ended up landing there. So we got through that, and it ended up, thankfully, everything was okay. I mean, it fused my spine, like the discs were fused together from the antibiotics and stuff like that. But the doctor told me, he said, well, if anything ever happens to your back, you'll never break your back there because it's all one piece of bone. And where it was thankfully, it was between my shoulder blades, so there was no like rotation there. So they said if it had been lower or higher, you would have been either paralyzed or in a lot of pain all the time. They said everything was just, I don't know, I feel like everything just happens for, like, timing was right. Like any of the, like as crazy of all of this was like, timing was right when they found me in the barn, like to get me to the hospital, for all of this to go right and still come out on the other end okay. Like it could have been so much worse. But yeah, so it was about a year and a half or whatever after everything was finally on its way out, and they finally told me, thankfully the farm it was a big farm, and they have workman's comp, so it was a big enough farm that they understood. I remember being in like the in the rehab, and my boss would say, he's like, Liz, remember I told you, because they raised registered Holstein, really nice cows, and he's like, remember I told you not to kill that, make sure this one doesn't die. This is a really expensive calf. He's like, well, we just sold it and it covered your ER bill. It was a big calf, but it was like one of those, he's like, it covered one of your, so it was just things like that. Like they were amazing. They did a great job. And like, he's like, I'm really glad I pay my workman's comp bill every year, like just things like that. So, but yeah, so it was just a lot of relearning everything. Like that was the biggest thing. It was like relearning how to just do your hair, go, get dressed, like all those kind of things. Writing, like I always laugh because if people see any of my labels, you'll know if it's messy label or my labels, like, because it's still just learning how to write right-handed versus those kind of things. Just even typing, I think right now in my business and what I'm doing with everything is emails and stuff like that. Like, I'm so more likely to give you a call and just ask you a question than I am to write an email. Or if I am, I'm doing it voice to text or something like that, just because it's so much easier, because typing one-handed is a pain in the butt. I feel like it's like when you first learn how to use a keyboard. Yep, exactly. So it's like just kind of doing stuff like that. And so yeah, it just slows everything down. So I think that's like, I can do everything right now. Like when I was going through the whole workman comp process, which I didn't realize, but because I was a farm worker and I didn't make a lot of money, you don't get a lot because your heart's not as important as if you were a fancy lawyer or something that makes the big bucks and like that kind of stuff. Then your heart's worth more than it is, because it's all based on your pay. So it's based on your income. So I think that was the biggest, it was a huge learning experience. So I don't know, it was enough to I'm just glad that everything was covered, like hospital, like that kind of stuff. Like the hospital bills, I didn't have to worry about those kind of things, and super thankful for that. But yeah, just relearning how to do everything and starting over. And as soon as I got the okay, because that's what they said, that was their biggest thing, was to get me back to work. And so I went back to the farm part-time, and I didn't have any problems with it, but it was more of be doing everything one-handed. I said, I'm gonna wear this hand out in a year. There's no way I'm gonna be able to shovel every day, all day, like all that, just random stuff, they're just carrying things one-handed. I was like, I'm not gonna have any hands, they were just, it won't be. So that's why I told the farm, I was like, I just can't do it. COVID hit. It was actually during COVID when I was and COVID hit, and he said, you have the choice. You can either, go home and work on your stuff, or you can stay here, but there are a lot of people in and out of the farm, and I don't want you getting sick. So that they gave me the choice, and so I said, okay, well, this is the time I can really just try and make this work. And, Workman's Comp was saying, okay, so do you have a plan B? Because, what are you going to do besides this? And I said, well, I have a mill part-time. I can try and make it into a full-time thing. And they don't like you being self-employed. They do not want you being self-employed. They're like, yeah, no, you're not going to be able to do this. Especially when I tell them it's a fiber mill. They're like, what is that? What is that? And what are you going to do with that? It's an actual thing. So I kind of had to prove to them, and even then I still didn't prove the lawyers and all that kind of stuff. They still didn't believe me that it was a real job, even though after a few years of doing it. So it was a big fight for them, trying to, just getting there. But I think, overall I ended up, it made it work. I made it work. I made sure it was one of those things that I didn't have an option. Number one, I wanted it. I've always wanted to be in this industry doing it, but it was like, okay, this is the time to do it. And I feel like everything is here. Everything happens for a reason. And I feel like if it didn't happen, then I wouldn't be here. I'd be at the farm, So I feel like that part was, in some ways, yeah, it slows me down and makes me have to do things in a different way. Sometimes I have to take things a little bit slower, or I have to make sure I try and multitask as much as I can, but still I can't do it as much as I used to, So trying to keep track. That's why I have, what I do with Julie, she loves what she does. She works for me, and she is definitely my, right-hand man, because literally because if there's things that I can't do, then she does, and she's willing to jump in. And she always laughs too, because she's like, do you want me to help you? Or because I'm always trying to figure it out myself first, because if once I figure it out, then I'm like, okay, I know I can't do this, then she steps in and she'll do something. But I don't know, there's definitely just kind of slow going, and we get it all done. But we just bought the spinning equipment, and now I'm able to spin. I can do everything from start to finish now, so that's super exciting. I'm so excited to have just our own yarn and try and just keep everything. I'm trying to help as many local farmers make yarn as possible now. Like, it's just really, I feel like it's definitely like come full circle, and I wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't gotten hurt. So it's definitely I had to laugh because their girl's dad he was making some comment about me working till I was 90, and my daughter Emma says, well, doesn't he realize that you will be working till you're 90 because that's what you like to do every day? So it's it's kind of true. Is even when you're off days, you're still like, oh, I got to go in for a little bit or do something, and yeah. So I don't know, but I think that's it. I don't think there's any. Yeah, please ask. If I can help anybody in all of this, like that's what I'd love to do, is help anybody else that has like other things that can help them. That would be great. So. Oh no! These are fleeces from somebody else's thing, but I can mail them. Those are no. I was just telling my story about how I got hurt, and then and what we do like at the mill. Like so now we just started. I've been spinning, or I've been carding for 17 years, but we just got the spinning equipment. So now we're going to be able to make everything from start to finish. We're playing with all the different kinds of wools, just trying to learn as much as we can. And my other goal too is to work with either whether they're makers in the small scale, because I'm definitely like kind of towards the small, the smaller quantities of things. Like I can do, I think, from small to big, but I like to do some finished products too. Like I want to talk to people that are, machine knitters, and people that are trying to get in different industries, weavers. You know what I'm saying? Like, because there's so many people like that are customers of mine that they're not knitters, and they just want to find a place to sell their, they want to do something with their wool that they have, and that's what I'm hoping I can help too. Is okay, so if you want to. You have a great wool and you have a nice flock, that kind of stuff, and we can turn it into yarn, and then we can send it off to a knitter that can make hats that you can sell, or you can do whatever you want, bring them to your farmer's market, mitts, like that kind of stuff, blankets. So there's so many small, there's weavers that are out there that, they just do small things too, and maybe they can take on work if they want to do some production work, on a smaller end of things. And yeah, they could do that. I think that would be really cool and helpful for everybody. So, yeah.
Do you see, are there other mills similar to yours? And do you see yours as a model for other mills to do across the country?
I wouldn't say that, because I feel like even though I've been doing the carding part of it, I feel like every mill does something different, and they all have their different ways of doing things, and they find what they like, like I feel like every mill, it'd be really cool if other mills did it, but I feel like, some mills are wanting to just make their own yarn, there's other mills that, want to do, say, just, I don't know, the other, they want to do, they're just different, sell to just yarns, or some want to dye and some don't dye. So I feel like it's going to be there's so many different avenues to go in. Yeah. The other thing I was thinking too is like we have the cone winder. We could do, we can put it on cones, and, if we wanted to make larger batches, we could sell it in, right here, like put it on cones instead of scanning it. It's everybody's different, I think. So it's hard to tell I think you have to find what works in your mill for sure. I think every mill is different, so I don't know, but.
Can you talk about your equipment and what it spins, the new spinning equipment?
Yeah.
I know about it.
Okay, yeah.
It's good equipment.
Yes, yeah. So I have my original carder is a Tex Tech, which I don't think anybody knows what that is, because it's a really small. He had it. He was in he was out of Canada, and so I bought that new from him. And then I have a couple of pin drafters, which those are both really nice. The pin drafters, which kind of align it and get it prepared for spinning. So I have a couple. We have 3. I only have 1 in use right now. I have 2 in storage because I don't ran out of space. But we do have a few other pin drafters that are ready and waiting, and when we expand. And then the spinner that we just got is a Romella, which is out of Italy, and it's a super nice. The spinners are great. We can do everything from, I think, from 3 to 7 inch staple length, and then anything from fingering weight to bulky. So we can pretty much cover anything as long as it's like within the staple length is like what's going to be like the biggest. That's usually what prohibits things is the staple length. Yep. So I think we can pretty much. We also have which I haven't. When we bought the equipment, he didn't know how to use it either, but it does have a slubber, which makes like thick and thin, and I want to figure out how to use that. Yeah. So I want to make some thick and thin, and we haven't played around with it yet, but that's our next thing is to try, and I think it'll be really fun to try. I don't know, like I haven't tried. Somebody else asked me like to do a Lopi style yarn, and I don't know. Like we could probably do it. It's me having to learn how to, So spinning singles is a lot different than spinning, like if you could do a 2-ply Lopi, like maybe do something that instead would be a real Lopi because it's not a single, but we could do something that's probably similar to it, like a lower twist 2-ply. And just, it's all playing around and learning things. And that's why I feel like we're still trying to figure out what our thing is with the spinning equipment. Plus we're so busy already just for other people's stuff. So we have to kind of sneak in some other things in there too. I really like color, and I really like the heathers and the tweeds and that kind of stuff. So I feel like we need more, more of that too. That gives us, some of those. So I think that would be fun too. But yeah, so I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. But yeah.
That's really interesting. She called my teeth water.
Yes, that's ours. We washed it all. It's sitting in a bag, all washed and waiting till we're ready. Like we want to make sure we're confident in it before we put it into 3 yours. But yes, we're trying all the different kinds of fiber as much as we can think of, all the different things. That way we can, and then we just have to blend yours with something else. I have to talk to you, and we can figure out what we're going to blend it with, and then it'll be good because teasewater is nice and slippery. So we definitely will have to put something with it just to help it so it's not, and it can give it some loft too, and it'll be a nice one. So yeah, it'll be fun. So I think right now weather is a huge thing. That's the other thing with the equipment is like just static right now because it's so cold and dry. So we've been fighting with static and learning that part of it. And I'm trying to think of other things that we've learned. I've never done so much math in my life too. So much math. Oh my God. Because everything is yards per pound, and we have half of our equipment is American, the other half is Italian, so it's metric. So now we're doing lots of just switching things over from grams per, all that's grams per meter, and then the others are yards per pound. And so, yeah, that's all we feel like we do all day is math. I feel like it's pretty funny because that's all we've, I was like, I never thought this would be important. And so now it is. But no, we're getting the hang of it. So, but yeah, and I don't think you've seen some of the yarn that we had. Have you had a chance to? You did get to take it. Okay, that's good. I'm glad you like it. Yes. So I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.